Hi everyone. I welcome you all to the Goofy Tales live session. We are waiting to add Geet Rao to our session. It's just going to take a moment. Okay. Okay, she's. Hi Geet, how are you?
Hi Sana, I'm very well. How are you?
Good, thanks. So we're right on time. It's 4 o'clock, like we said, and we're about to begin our very interesting session about pet nutrition. And we've got some viewers who've joined in. So I'm just going to do a little bit of formal introduction for Geet. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And this is our live session, like you know, with Geet Rao, who's a pet nutritionist. There's so much information being thrown at us as pet owners, things that are good for our dogs and cats and not so good for our dogs and cats. Is kibble better or home food is better? So we'll be answering and addressing all these issues in this session. Now, I just want to give a formal introduction about Geet. Geet is a pet nutritionist, a pet food recipe curator. That's a very interesting portfolio. She has designed many dog and cat foods. She's also founder of Pet Kitchen, where she provides specialized nutritious foods for pets. So, as her handle says, it's called Pet Kitchen by Geet Rao. So,
Yeah.
welcome, Geet.
Thank you so
And we've got a lot of viewers who've joined in. So I'm just going to tell the format of this slide session. We'll have question answers with Geet, and at the end of the session, we'll leave it up to the audience to ask questions. The best question will get a Goofy hamper from Goofy Tales. And if there are many interesting questions, that we might take out two winners. So keep your questions relevant to pet nutrition, and there would be no brand discussions or anything related to which brand is better than the other. So let's begin.
Yeah. So you said that the best question will get a a goofy hamper. Can I also ask a question then?
Oh, please go ahead. You want to ask a question? You can. The only thing is that you would be at the receiving end as well because you'll have to answer.
I was tempted with the hamper.
Oh, yeah, Goofy Tales does get a lot of a lot of people love the hampers that they give as gifts. So yes, so keep your questions relevant to all the viewers, and we will be giving out few Goofy hampers. Now,
Sure.
my first question to you, Geet, is that I hear a lot of people, especially in my generation, say that our dogs were fed milk and roti, and they grew up to be just fine. And I don't know why these fancy foods have taken over these days. My parents always fed my dog milk and roti and never had any issues, lived a great life. So we all know that dogs are lactose intolerant. And I want you to talk a little bit about why we should not give doodh roti or milk roti to our dogs.
Sure. So first of all, about dogs being fed on milk protein and being fine and thinking that the meals have been complicated, I would say that our knowledge evolves. So long time back, the nutrition that our parents or grandparents used to have is not what we have today. The concept of fitness, which once, I mean, what is it, what it is today for us, never existed, sometime back. So as we learn, as we gain more knowledge, I think we should behold it and we should welcome it and not stick to previous. So yes, most dogs are not tolerant to lactose, and they show, signs of indigestion upon having lactose. Whereas sometimes, like curd, might be fine, but not milk. And milk not be uh, a base meal for a dog. It comes as a convenience to most pet parents, just pouring milk and just mixing some bread or roti, and goes as a breakfast for a lot of dogs. However, dogs do not need to eat as many times as we humans eat. They just need to eat probably twice, not probably, sorry, need to eat twice a day. So they do not, and I'm talking about adult dogs especially. So adult dogs, once they've weaned off, they do not have as such requirement of milk. So they should be switched on to adult dog meals, to adult dog recipes. And that is what they should be eating twice a day.
So there's a very good point you mentioned here that adult dogs just need to be fed twice a day.
Yes.
So other than that, all the other meals are snack meals or treats, or it's just two big meals that they need during the day.
So ideally, dogs should have 90% of their calories from the two meals that they're fed in the day, and 10% of the calories can come from small, treats. So, for example, for a 30 kg dog, say a golden retriever, and I'm talking about an adult dog right now, would need around 1,500 to 1,600 calories a day, assuming that the dog is reasonably active, not very active, but reasonably active, like a dog having two walks, twice a day. So 1,500 calories a day would be his requirement. So cut 10%, about 150 treats, and the balance coming from two meals, like 30 calories something coming from two meals
So
twice a day.
that's very important information that I, as a pet parent, often think that my dog is hungry. So we often feed him off the table as well, which is not a very good habit. But I think a lot of us would be doing that. So I think my big takeaway from this is that yeah, they just need to get 90% of their calories from two big meals.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So I have another question. Do different breeds have different dietary requirements? So what, like, for example, if I have two dogs in my house, a Shih Tzu and a Retriever, do they both have different dietary requirements?
Well, definitely, yes. Number one, the caloric requirements, they differ. A lot of difference, especially comes when, in the puppyhood phase. For example, small breeds like Maltese and, Shih Tzus, they become adult dogs very soon, probably in 8 to 9 months. Whereas for larger breeds like German Shepherds, keep on growing until 3 years of age. So the caloric density required in puppyhood is much more than dogs um, when they are adult dogs. So the larger breeds will have more caloric dense needs for a longer period of time because their puppyhood is limited. And so will there be calcium needs. The calcium, uh, even in adult dogs, will differ for a small breed vis-a-vis a large breed. The reason is that calcium is required for maintenance of bones as well, right? So the volume of bones in a small breed is so less, whereas that in a large dog is more. So ideally, it
Mhm.
is, all of this can be related to the caloric intake required. The larger dogs, they would need more calories to maintain their body. Smaller dogs would need lesser calories to maintain their body and also um, respect for the nutrients.
So you mentioned about calcium intake. Can calcium intake, uh, I mean, do all dogs needs calcium supplements, or can it be fulfilled with just their regular meals?
See, if you're feeding something like bones, or if there is bone meal in your dog's food, or you're putting eggshell powder, or you're giving a calcium supplement, then it's fine if it's there in the food. For example, a lot of kibbles are already fortified with calcium, so you do not have to give extra calcium supplementation. But if it is not the case, if you're feeding a homemade food, or you're feeding maybe a fresh food which is not completely balanced or doesn't have bones, then some calcium supplementation would be required.
So we are talking about kibble, and I have a very important question here to ask. What are your views about feeding kibble to the dog? And there's so many brands with so much information written on their packets. What is the key ingredient that pet owners need to look at, and what are the ingredients which should not be there, what they can avoid giving their dog as kibble?
So, when it comes to India, there is no regulatory authority when it comes to, what we write, the labeling that we put on pet. So that is a big concern. So, in the West, on the other hand, for example, if there is a kibble, so you need to write the largest portion of the ingredient list the first. So, for example, it mentions chicken first. So that means chicken is the largest ingredient of that kibble.
Mm-hmm.
However, in India, even if chicken would be a very small portion of the kibble, then also we can write it as the first ingredient. As soon as a pet parent reads the ingredient first, so you're like, oh, this has chicken, but you have no idea how much chicken does it have, right? So, this lack of regulation in India is quite a concern. Secondly, kibbles are dehydrated. So imagine having to digest a food which is completely dry, which does not have any moisture. It's very hard to digest such foods. So that is a drawback of kibble. And then kibbles often have nutritional analysis mentioned on their pack as crude protein. So most parents do not understand these nutritional affirmations which are mentioned on the packs. Crude protein, crude fat essentially means the minimum amount of protein that is found upon test. And this could be any kind of protein, whether it is digestible by the dog's body or not. Even a plant's wall, cellulose, even that is built of protein, but it is not digestible. Even
Okay.
fiber is made of protein. Even fiber consists of protein. So it is not a very relevant, it's not a very relevant benchmark for understanding the nutrition analysis. What I would suggest pet parents to learn or look for is what the number of calories coming by protein, or what is the dry matter calories, dry matter protein in the food for that matter, in order to understand whether there is enough protein in the food or not. So these are the few drawbacks I feel that kibbles have.
So I think my takeaway from what you said is that kibble or dry dog food, like they say, is the second option for a dog if you have to give a meal. So the first option should always be, like for humans, a home cooked meal or something that you can cook in your own kitchen. Fresh foods,
Absolutely.
yes. So
And sorry.
yeah, sorry. So talking about home cooked meals. How can one incorporate, like when we cook our meals in the kitchen, how can one incorporate a dog's meal along with the foods that we are cooking for ourselves? So if there's dal being made at home, can that be given to the dog? And how about bone broth? So like you mentioned about calcium supplements, can bone broth be given to the dogs as well, and how good is it for them? Can they digest it?
Yeah, so bone broth is excellent for dogs. It's made by boiling some bones for a very long period of time, which releases collagen into the broth. And collagen is the most abundant protein in the body, not just for us, but even for dogs. Even humans are popping collagen supplements all the time. Collagen peptides are so readily available and popular for us. So collagen is definitely a great supplement of choice for dogs, and bone broth is a very natural source of collagen. So it should be given to dogs, and it can be given as a food topper or mixed with the foods or to hydrate kibble. There are so many ways it can be used. It can even used as a topper for fussy eaters. And what was your first part of the question? Missed it.
So I wanted to ask that the dals or the lentils, how important is it in a dog's diet? And are we supposed to give the regular dals that we eat to our dogs? Or like they say that chane ki dal is very good for dogs. Does it have enough protein? Can it be digested by the dog, or it's just a myth?
Chane ki dal, I would not recommend for dogs at all because I think it can make them very gassy. So lentils are rich in fiber also. And any plant protein is a little harder to digest. And
Okay.
also, like, you can ask that, the nutritional requirements for different breeds differ. So this is something very relevant for breeds as well. So in my experience as a pet nutritionist, I've been giving some diet plans since the last few years. The smaller the breed, the harder they find it to digest plant matter. And give them
Okay.
lentils like Shih Tzus and all. First of all, they won't eat it only. They are very fussy.
Hmm.
And even if you give it to them, they would be gassy or they would have loose stools. Whereas larger breeds like golden retrievers, labras, German shepherds, they'll do fine on lentils,
Okay.
except for a few dogs who would have an individual, compatibility with lentils. Some
Okay.
dogs, even large breeds, might become gassy on lentils. So
So,
it's not a go-to, protein source for all dogs. Usually for adult dogs who show no sign of indigestion upon consuming lentils. And lentils that should be fed should also be without the husk, like dhuli dali jo hoti hai, wo deni chahiye. Not the
okay.
ones with the, because
Chilpan.
more the fiber, more the fermentation in the stomach, more the gas.
Brilliant. I think my takeaway is that plant protein again is not the first option to as as the nutritious food for the dog. So now a lot of pet parents and a lot of kitchens in households in India especially are vegetarians.
Hmm.
So how do we tackle that? Because as an animal, a dog needs their share of bone broth, like you said, or animal protein. And in a vegetarian kitchen, this is something that is hard to, some people are just not comfortable seeing meat being cooked in their house, even though they don't have an apprehension or it's not by faith that they have anything against meat, but then they just can't stand the sight of it. So,
Yeah.
how does one give nutrition to their dog in that case?
Well, it's all right. I've designed a lot of vegetarian diet plans also. So there are alternative sources of fulfilling the pet's, protein requirement. Something that is very important to remember here is that you will need to supplement your dog's diet along with some amino acid supplement. So I always recommend giving an amino acid supplement whenever a dog is on a vegetarian diet. Secondly, the sources can be, I in many vegetarian households, eggs are okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Egg-
Yeah. Yeah. So egg protein
When
is also good.
Yeah, but what the mistake that we do is, for example, if it's a 30 kg dog, we end up putting two whole eggs, thinking that it's a lot of protein. But what happens is two whole eggs also means two whole egg yolks, which is very rich in fat.
Oh
So
yes.
yeah, so one full egg and one egg white should be good enough for one meal of an adult 30 kg. And along with this, obviously some rice, some vegetables, stuff like that. For vegetarian dogs, the protein sources can be obviously cottage cheese is there, paneer हम खिलाते हैं. A lot of seeds should be added to their diet because seeds are a source of fat protein only. Cottage cheese will be there. There could be tofu. Tofu is fermented. It is better than soya, easier to digest. So when it comes to soy-based products, I recommend tofu to give uh, protein to the dog. Peas are a rich source of protein. However, many dogs don't like it. If you mix peas, they will cleverly eat everything and leave all the peas whole. So better thing is to puree the peas and cook it well and then add it to the dog's meal. Peanut butter is such a great source of protein for dogs. So yeah, so seeds and peanut butter and cottage cheese, eggs, a curd. I think they pretty much are, they give a good source of protein to the dogs and keep adding the amino acids. And yeah, if you don't like the touch and feel of non-vegetarian foods, but you're okay in giving non-veg, then you can come to me and I can design such sort of treats.
Yes, yes, and indeed, and I think that's what you've also been part of Goofy Tales, and the whole idea that Goofy Tales is promoting those homemade meals is that people who are not comfortable giving their dogs
Yeah.
meat or they don't want to cook in their kitchen, they always have that option of just ready to eat meals. So, brilliant. Now that we're talking to you and we're talking about dog food, I want to ask that one ingredient that is irresistible to all breeds and every single dog. What would be that according to you?
Can I name two instead of one?
Okay, please go ahead.
One is definitely peanut butter. Dogs love peanut
Okay.
butter, and yeah, dogs say peanut butter, not the peanut butter for human beings. It's without salt, it's without sugars, and it can also be made at home just by grinding some roasted peanuts, not raw peanuts. And the number two ingredient is ghee. So if the dog is not eating anything, just add in a little. Chances are your dog will eat the food.
I never knew that. I thought that ghee is not supposed to be given to dogs.
No, why not? Because we add so many fats. Fat is such an important source of energy for dogs, and ghee is rich in omega, so it's wonderful for dogs.
That's brilliant. So I mean, that's something that I came to know today that ghee is brilliant for dogs. So someone in this live chat asked about peanut butter and this ingredient called xylitol, if I'm pronouncing it right. It is toxic for dogs. What exactly it is, and how can we avoid it, and what kind of peanut butter should be given to dogs?
Xylitol is nothing but an artificial sweetener. It's even found in toothpastes. So whatever, like toothpaste and cough syrups, everything has a xylitol to give that sweet. So peanut butter available for human beings. Well, xylitol is neither good for us nor for dogs. So um, I would say that, we've become so cautious for our dogs. If we were so cautious for us as well, it would be so nice. So yeah, so peanut butter, buy it from a dog, a dog pet food company, which makes dog safe peanut butter. It should not have xylitol, no sugars. Some companies I've seen these days adding sugar or jaggery to treats, or to dog treats, or to peanut butter even. So that should not be there.
Okay. So someone asked me this question in this live chat, that is rohu a good fish to feed a dog, and is fish in particular good for dogs?
Fish is good for dogs, and all kinds of fish are very good for dogs. Just make sure that the bones are not, I mean, it should be deboned. Or if you're giving the fish with the bone, then it should be like ground well. It should be like proper bone meat. So what happens is that sometimes if you fish at home, the bones are so fine that sharp edges in the bones remain, and they can get stuck in your dog's GI tract. So that is of concern. And prefer that you feed your dogs freshwater fish over marine fish, because marine fishes have a lot of concentration of mercury in them. Not even canned fish that is washed. Sorry, just because canned fish also absorb a lot of salt. So I
Yes.
would prefer just fresh fish and a freshwater fish over marine fish.
Okay. Someone has asked another question. What's your take on CBD oil? Have heard so much about it lately. It being really excellent for their joints and overall health. Yes, even I've heard something called a specific paw butter for the dogs, or something CBD also. I know that as a nutritionist, I don't know whether that can consist of a dog's diet. But what is your take on that?
Uh, CBD oil, okay, it's quite a controversial topic. I mean, when it comes to me, otherwise I've seen everybody talking very positive about CBD. But I have this inherent nature of going into something and trying to find out why. So CBD, or it's a byproduct of the plant hemp, right? So it comes from hemp, and hemp plantations have been uh, in abundance in countries. But until recently, marijuana is legal. So marijuana also comes from the hemp plant. And then when all these plantations were legalized, suddenly there was a outburst of CBD oil. It's the oil that comes from the seeds. leaves is what was used for the drug. And now the whole plant is being used and sold. So I don't really know why suddenly, and I went into reading the research papers and studies which say that CBD oil is very good for dogs. And to read a research paper, it also has the funding knowledge. I mean the information on who funded the study. So most of the studies were also funded by plantation houses. So I'm not
Okay.
sure, and I'm not an authority. I have not spent dollars on research on CBD oil, but I don't. And see, it's nothing but bhang. It's been very popular in India on Holi, and we are very in our knowledge of oils. So, like mustard oil is very popular in India. Ghee is popular. Coconut oil is popular, and we've been nation been using oils for centuries. No other nation has been using like sesame oil. So many oils India has been using,
Yes.
and for various therapeutic uses. But I've never heard the use of bhang ka tel in India, like hemp oil. I've never heard.
Very valid point. Yeah. So very valid
Yeah.
point. I think all the information that we see, some of it can also just be a marketing gimmick by big companies, and we should not blindly follow everything that is there on the internet.
Yes, and just to give another take on this point only, homeopathy is of wide usage in our country, but it is almost banned in US. FDA does not recognize homeopathy. Homeopathy is dying in America, and even the European Union, as well as in some American countries, mustard oil was banned as being as toxic or something. I don't remember the exact details. Sarson ka tel. Whereas in our country, we cook 80% of our vegetables in sarson ka tel, even our meats in mustard oil, and it is revered as a very good oil for health. So there's definitely a difference of opinion. I am very Indian knowledge oriented. I feel our Ayurvedic studies are certain things more apt. And another thing, uh, mostly if CBD oil is being touted for its anti-inflammatory properties. So anti-inflammatory properties come from omega-3 fatty acids. So why not use flaxseed oil instead of CBD oil, or why not use fish oil instead of CBD oil? Because these two oils, if you read the chemistry of the oils, so fish oil, even flaxseed oil will have much more omega-3 as compared to CBD. So omega-6s are what promote inflammation in the body, and omega-3s are what reduce inflammation in the body. So, like, I'm a pet food recipe curator. When I'm designing a recipe, one of the goals of a recipe I design is to maintain a healthy omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in the food, because most foods are rich in omega-3. So we are always trying to balance omega-6 with a good proportion of omega-3, so that inflammatory problems like skin problems, itching, rashes are reduced in the dog. So we need more omega-3s. And certainly flaxseed give much more omega-3 than CBD. So
So
that's my
someone
take on.
asked this question that what do you think about the dehydrated dog treats? And some of them also have coconut oil in them. So what do you think about the dehydrated dog treats?
Yeah, I mean, dehydrated as in they are single ingredient like beetroots or bananas, which are dehydrated. It's fine. Even chicken jerky is a dehydrated dog treat. Good, it's preserved without any preservatives, and it's a good form of treat. Oven baked treats, or biscuits, dog biscuits, these are also dehydrated, unless specifically mentioned that they have. Otherwise, they don't need preservatives. So basically, it's being preserved just by loss of moisture.
Okay. And there's another question. What part of chicken should be given to the dog, and how much the quantity of liver, as in what quantity of chicken liver should be given to the dog?
Chicken liver should not be more than 5% of the diet. But subject to how much fat you're adding to the diet. Because if you're adding, say, egg yolks and oil, usually I do not recommend feeding more than 40 to 43% of fat in a dog's diet. coming from calories. So, but if you're talking about liver toxicity as such, then around 10 grams a day for a small dog, and about 20 grams a day for a medium dog.
10 grams a day for a small dog and 20 grams a day for a medium dog.
Yeah, yeah, 25 grams and 40 for a large dog.
Okay.
And
So
parts
that's
of you can feed the legs, the breast part of the chicken, and if you're talking about organs, liver as well as the heart, chicken feet are also given. Soup made from chicken feet is also good. However, selection of chicken feet should be done properly. Many times they are infected, and chicken necks can just be like that to chew on raw. They have cartilage.
So there are a lot of people who are asking us a recipe from you, and there's a request specifically for a peanut butter, homemade peanut butter recipe. A lot of people want to know how to make a homemade peanut butter. So do you want to share the secret recipe that every dog is going to like after this session?
Sure. So just get some roasted peanuts. They should be unsalted and put them in a grinder. Start initially, you might feel that they are not grinding, but just give it some time. They will become into a paste and eventually a butter. So in fact, I'll tell you a recipe with this peanut butter only. Next, what you can do is get some flax seeds, grind them, and get a flaxseed powder. Mash some banana, and now mix it all together. It will become a sticky dough, and you can either make roll it into balls and store it in a jar and give these balls to your dog, or you can even bake them so they'll become dehydrated, and that it'll be easy for the dog. You need not store them in the refrigerator. So it's a very
Wow.
protein. And
So I
so
think
that's
everybody now knows how to save that money and not buy peanut butter from the market, and just make it at home for your dogs and keep it fresh. Now there are some questions. Now I'm going to ask the audience to please ask your questions. I'll be announcing your Instagram handle and asking the question, and Geet will get to choose the best question. Till then, I'm going to ask
okay.
one question, um, which someone also asked. Let me check. Yeah, so I wanted to ask, like, my dog is a very, very fussy eater. So some days he would like to have a boiled egg, but the same thing he may not have the next day. What is that one ingredient or that meal topper or something that I can just magically put on his food, and he would start having every single meal that I give him? What is that one meal topper that we can give to dogs who are very, very fussy or picky eaters?
You wish there was more shopping for such dogs, and there isn't. So for fussy
Okay.
eaters, you have to have, a set of 5 to 6 recipes, and make sure you don't repeat a recipe for at least 3, 4 meals. And because if you repeat it too soon, they say no to it. And this is what works for them. So you need to have like sorry, what's your dog's breed?
It's an indie.
It's an Indie. That's surprising. Indies are usually not
I
fussy
know.
eaters.
So yeah, that's very, very surprising. For indies, usually it's a myth that indies have a very strong gut, or they don't fall sick, or they have a great appetite. Well, this is a big myth that I have experienced myself, and my dog is a very, very fussy eater. So what works for me is bone broth. So the days that my dog is very fussy, I would just sprinkle some bone broth on his food, and then he can just happily have everything.
Yes, bone broth is definitely good, and dogs do have it. But I would suggest that don't use it every day because you might have him lose that also. So,
Okay.
yeah, some chicken jerky,
Oh,
sometimes, powder some chicken jerkies on certain days. Put some chicken jerky, powder chicken jerky as a topping. On some days, put bone broth. Some days have a different meat with some ghee on it. So you need to have a few options ready and keep
so I
on.
think I have now three secret ingredients. That's bone broth, ghee, chicken jerky, powdered chicken jerky, and a homemade peanut butter.
Right.
Great. So we have a question from Good Boy Gucci. Is roti good for dogs? I think you answered that in the beginning, but that's one of the questions. So do you want to answer that? Is roti good for dogs?
As a source of carbohydrate, you can use wheat also if your dog is not allergic to gluten. But I mean, it should be a limited ingredient. It is not a main meal or a main source of energy for dogs.
Okay. There's a question from Cats of Aligarh. What additional nutrition we should give to a pregnant Persian cat?
Okay, to pregnant Persian cats. I'll have to look this up because, cats are a very rare, client for me. And it's been a while that I made something for a, expecting cat, but I can look it up in my books and back. I'm sorry about that. I'm not ready.
Okay. There's someone who's asking this question: how to deworm an adult dog, a Labrador, naturally at home? I don't know if deworming can work naturally at home, but then do you want to answer that?
It depends on how bad is the infestation. If the dog clearly is showing signs of indigestion or a lot of worms, once medical intervention must be done. Otherwise, on a regular basis, a lot of people think giving garlic will, do away with the worms. However, garlic has a repercussion if fed regularly can cause anemia in dogs. So garlic should not be fed regularly. Yes, it does have deworming capabilities and all. So you can, maybe once in a while give a treat with garlic as well as uh, one pumpkin seeds. So these three ingredients are very good, and even so is apple cider vinegar. So you can use them in combination. While yeast you can give every day, you can give pumpkin seeds also. Pumpkin seeds, what they do is they paralyze the worms.
Okay.
So yeah, so then eventually they die. Yeah. So, but I mean, it should not be considered as a replacement of the regular deworming that a veterinarian does. So, and especially for dogs showing signs of indigestion.
Okay. There's someone called I'm Gucci the pug. Anything which can help joint pain in dogs?
Lots of things. Um, if you talk about the diet, bone broth is great. You can give haldi, start adding haldi, and if the pain is a lot, then curcumin, extract will be better than haldi itself because it's more concentrated. Um, and I mean, all these supplements and stuff is all right, but if the dog is having joint pain, he does need some physiotherapy. There are not many physiotherapists for dogs in the country, but you can look up the videos on YouTube depending upon the joint of your dog. And the keyword for your search should be passive range of motion exercises for a dog having knee pain, joint, whatever, like hip joint pain, whatever joint pains. And the keyword is passive range of exercises. This is what you should be looking for and do
So
these
it should
exercises.
not just be about the diet, it is also about physiotherapy that your dog needs to, get rid of that joint pain. Um, I think I'm going to take one last question from Nikita Mariam. Good evening. How advisable is raw diet for dogs? Also, how do we calculate calorie intake per day? And lastly, best recommended fruits, vegetable for daily nutrition. That makes three questions, Nikita, but I'll leave it to Geet for answering that. How advisable is raw diet for dogs? So
I
I'm not. I think you're the best one to answer, but. From the little knowledge that I have, they say that raw egg and anything raw except vegetables are not supposed to be fed to dogs. What is your take on that?
am not a propagator of raw food because I feel it poses a risk not only to the dog but also to the family. The biggest risk that it comes from raw food is that zoonotic diseases. Zoonotic diseases are diseases that get transferred from dogs to or animals, actually human beings. Classic example is rabies. A rabies dog bites a man, the man gets the rabies virus. But this is not the only way a disease is passed on from animals to human beings. It is even passed on from sharing bedding, from when we're kissing our dogs and we have small babies, we have seniors, people with compromised immune system. So So giving raw food essentially means not, killing the pathogens in the food. So yes, if the dogs were in the wild, they would have eaten everything raw, and so would we if we were in the wild and if we were, back to the centuries when mankind used to live as nomads. But we are domesticated, and so are our dogs. So I think it's perfectly okay to feed them cooked food.
So I think that's the answer I was also looking at. We should feed cooked food to our dogs, and that's the way it should be. So brilliant. I think Geet, you get to choose the best question. There are a lot of questions coming in, but then we have time constraints. So I think I'll leave it to you. Which one do you think was the best question?
I think the one on raw food, because there's so much being talked about raw food, but nobody is really questioning it. People are just following it like a trend that, okay, raw food is
Yeah.
what should be done. But I think that before we adopt anything, we must question it. We must think about it.
Brilliant. So, Nikita, Mariam, you please DM Goofy Tales and claim your hamper. And there was another question about coconut oil. I don't remember who asked it, that is coconut oil good for dogs? So I think one of the questions, if I can choose, I would choose that one. Is coconut oil good oil for dogs? And yeah, so the two people, please DM us, and we'll be sending you the Goofy hamper. So, Nikita, any final, word from you about dog nutrition? What do you have to say?
Well, dog nutrition is very dear to me, at least. Like, I mean, it's uh, which is why I am a chartered accountant by education, but now this is what I'm doing because I love this. And I feel the message that I want to give to pet parents is that it should be kept simple. We should not think so much about dog nutrition. As long as your dog is having a balanced diet and is looking fine in you're doing just fine. And just enjoy the ride with your dog.
Brilliant. So I think that is the end of this live session. I'm going to tell the audience that we will be posting the live recording of this session on Goofy Tales. And for a lot of products that we talked about in this session, like homemade meals, bone broth, chicken jerkies, dehydrated treats, all of them are available at Goofy Tales website. You must check them out. And thank you so much, Geet. You are also entitled to an hamper by Goofy Tales because you've been brilliant and you really busted a lot of myths about dog nutrition and foods that we should and shouldn't give to our dogs. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to the audience who gave us their time. Thank you, and I'm going to sign off now. Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.